Imagine being 65 years old. Your business has just collapsed. Your only income is a small government check of $105 a month. You have no savings, no plan, no backup. Most people at that age would sit down, accept their fate, and wait for the end. But this man did something that will make you question every excuse you have ever made in your life. He packed a pressure cooker into the back of his old car, and he drove. He drove from town to town, restaurant to restaurant, knocking on doors and begging strangers to try his chicken recipe. Over the next 2 years, he was rejected more than 1,000 times. 1,000 times. And yet, he kept going. This is the true story of Harland David Sanders, the man the world knows as Colonel Sanders, and how he built one of the most recognizable brands on earth, starting with absolutely nothing, at an age when most people had already given up. Harland Sanders was born on September 9, 1890 in Henryville, Indiana. His family was poor, not struggling, truly poor. When Harland was just 6 years old, his father died suddenly, leaving his mother alone with 3 young children and no money. His mother had no choice but to go to work at a canning factory just to keep the family alive, and that meant 7-year-old Harland was left at home, responsible for cooking meals for his younger brother and sister. At 7 years old, he was already the family cook. He had no choice but to learn fast, and learn he did. By the time he was 7, Harland had taught himself to cook cornbread, vegetables, and meat dishes that kept his family fed. But life was about to get harder. When his mother remarried, her new husband was a cruel and violent man who had no interest in raising another man's children. Harland could not stand it. At the age of 12, just 12 years old, he ran away from home, alone, with nothing. He spent the next few years drifting from job to job, trying to survive. He worked as a farmhand, a streetcar conductor, a railroad fireman. He lied about his age to join the army at 15 and was sent to Cuba. He studied law by correspondence and worked as a justice of the peace. He sold insurance. He operated a ferry boat. He ran a filling station. By the time he was in his 30s, Harland Sanders had tried more careers than most people try in a lifetime, and he had failed at nearly all of them. But through every single failure, through every job lost and every dream abandoned, there was one thing that never left him: his love of cooking, and specifically, his secret method for cooking chicken. In 1930, Harland Sanders was running a small gas station in Corbin, Kentucky. It was nothing special, just a roadside stop where tired drivers pulled in for fuel. But Harland had an idea. He noticed that travelers were hungry. There was nowhere decent to eat for miles. So he set up a small dining table inside his gas station and started cooking for travelers. Word spread fast. People weren't just stopping for gas anymore. They were driving out of their way just to eat Harland's food. His chicken was unlike anything anyone had ever tasted. He had developed a secret blend of herbs and spices, 11 of them, that created a flavor so unique and addictive that people couldn't stop talking about it. The gas station became a restaurant. The restaurant grew bigger and bigger. By 1939, Harland had expanded into a full motel and restaurant and was serving hundreds of customers every week. Life was finally good. Governor Ruby LaFoon awarded him the honorary title of Kentucky Colonel in recognition of his contribution to the state's cuisine. He was proud. He was successful. He was finally building something real. And then, everything was taken away. In the early 1950s, the government announced that a new interstate highway was being built. It would bypass Corbin, Kentucky entirely. Almost overnight, the traffic that had built Harland's restaurant dried up completely. Nobody drove past his door anymore. He tried to hold on. He tried to adapt, but it was hopeless. In 1952, he was forced to auction off everything he owned just to pay his debts. The restaurant, the motel, the equipment, everything. When the auction was over, Harland Sanders was left with almost nothing. He was 62 years old. He had spent decades building his dream, and in a matter of months, it had been completely destroyed by a road he had no control over. And then the letter arrived, his first Social Security check. $105. That was it. That was all he had. $105 a month and a chicken recipe. Most men would have accepted defeat. Most men would have sat down and never gotten back up. But Harland Sanders was not most men. He looked at that check. He looked at his recipe. And he made a decision that would change the world. Harland had an idea. Instead of opening his own restaurant, he didn't have the money for that. He would franchise his recipe to existing restaurants. He would teach restaurant owners his secret method. They would pay him a small amount for every piece of chicken they sold. It was simple. It was brilliant. There was just one problem. Nobody wanted it. Harland packed his pressure cooker and his secret blend of spices into the back of his old car and started driving. He went from restaurant to restaurant across Kentucky and beyond. He would walk in, introduce himself, and offer to cook a batch of his chicken for free so the owner could taste it. Some owners were polite. Most were not. They laughed at him. They told him to leave. They said nobody wanted his old-fashioned chicken recipe. Door after door after door closed in his face. 10 rejections, 50 rejections, 100 rejections. He slept in his car to save money. He kept driving. He kept knocking. 200 rejections, 500 rejections. His clothes were worn. His car was old. His body was tired. People who knew him begged him to stop. They told him it was over. They told him he was too old. They told him it was embarrassing. But Harland Sanders had spent his entire life being told he would fail. And he had learned something that most people never learn. Rejection is not the end. Rejection is just part of the journey. He kept driving. 1,000 rejections. And then, finally, somewhere in Utah, a man named Pete Harmon said yes. Just one yes. After more than 1,000 no's. Just one yes was all he needed. Pete Harmon became the first Kentucky Fried Chicken franchisee in 1952. His restaurant sales doubled almost immediately. Word spread quickly. Other restaurant owners started calling Harland. They had heard about this incredible chicken recipe and they wanted in. One by one, the franchises grew. By the late 1950s, there were hundreds of Kentucky Fried Chicken locations across America. By 1963, there were over 600 locations. The man who had been sleeping in his car and eating rejections for breakfast was now the face of one of the fastest-growing restaurant chains in history. In 1964, at the age of 73, Harland Sanders sold Kentucky Fried Chicken for $2 million. He remained the brand ambassador, the face of KFC, for the rest of his life. That white suit, that black string tie, that warm smile, recognized by billions of people around the world. He became one of the most famous faces in human history. Not a politician, not a movie star. A man who loved to cook chicken, a man who refused to quit. Colonel Sanders passed away on December 16, 1980 at the age of 90. But his story, his real story, never gets old. Because here is what the history books leave out. When he was driving from town to town, sleeping in his car, being rejected over and over again. He was 65 years old. 65. The age when most people retire. The age when most people say their best years are behind them. Harland Sanders was just getting started. Think about that the next time you feel like it is too late. Think about that the next time someone tells you no. Think about that the next time life takes away everything you built and leaves you with nothing but an idea and the courage to try. Colonel Sanders was rejected over 1,000 times. He slept in his car. He had $105 to his name. He was 65 years old, and he built one of the most recognized brands in the history of the world. Not because he was lucky, not because he was young, not because the world made it easy for him, but because he understood one simple truth that most people spend their whole lives running from. The only failure that truly counts is the one where you stop trying. Keep going, no matter how many times they say no, no matter how old you are, no matter how empty your pockets are. Keep going, because somewhere out there, your one yes is waiting.